In Buddhism, we make a distinction between conventional truth and ultimate truth related to the idea of constructed dhammas and ultimate dhammas, pariyata dhamma, paramatta dhamma. In the formula of the Four Noble Truths, these are classed as the transcendent, paramatta, or ultimate truths. And conventional right view is defined in a formula that occurs several times in the suttas. What is right view? There is that which is given and offered. There is fruit and result of good and evil deeds. There is this world and the other world. There is mother and father. There are spontaneously born beings, and there are those samanas and recluses who have, by their own efforts, attained to liberation. The underlying idea in this formula that makes it a conventional truth is that it relies on description in terms of persons, of beings. And the concept of a person is not an ultimate reality. In the Abhidhamma, the only ultimate reality are the momentary dhammas, what Sherbatsky calls point instant, the irreducible, instantaneous flashing into existence of a dhamma, of a point of reality. And these are both physical and mental, and they occur in causally related streams. And the complex of these things going on, we deal with conventionally as objects that we know, including persons. The Buddhist system is relatively simple compared to the Jains. The Jains had 7 gradations of truths between a falsehood and an ultimate truth. Buddhist system basically recognizes the 2 forms of truth and untruth. What's important to understand is that conventional truth or conventional reality is not a falsity. It's not wrong. It's just we could say it's an incomplete description of reality or an approximation of reality. It's a working model that's true in as far as it goes, and it's true for all intents and purposes of practicality. It's like the idea of an approximation is very good to get a handle on it. It's like if you were needed to know the dimension of pi. If you were using it to lay out a circle of rocks for a decorative garden that you were making, and you went to the garden supply shop to buy decorative stones to put around your garden, you needed to know how many stones. Well, it's good enough to say pi equals 3. That works well enough. You don't need anything better than that. So it's a reality, it's a truth, practical, functional truth, that pi equals 3. But if you're doing mathematical calculations, then you know that's not anywhere near good enough. It's not ultimately 3. Or another example would be if you're using the sun to navigate, either in a boat or if you're walking in the wilderness and you're finding your way with the sun. It's a useful model to say that the sun rises in the east in the morning and travels across the sky, and afternoon it sinks towards the west. Actually, you know that what's happening is the Earth is rotating, the sun's not moving across the sky. But if you try and figure out the directions using the model of the Earth spinning, it just adds a layer of complication you don't need. It's good enough to just think of the sun moving across the sky. That makes sense. That works. Yeah. So we have the conventional truth or conventional reality describes this world of persons, of beings. It's a conventional reality that we use, that we live in. The Buddha said someplace, use conventional language, but don't be fooled thereby. I recall years ago getting a letter from what I can only assume was a pretty new, self-educated Buddhist. And the letter was kind of comical because he went out of his way to phrase everything in such a way as not to use personal pronouns. Avoiding saying I and you. And then it would be, if you're expressing everything in terms of ultimate reality, it just is extremely cumbersome and confusing and for ordinary conventional purposes. If I want to ask if Phil has got his recording device, I don't say, is that bundle of aggregates conventionally known as Phil, did he remember to bring that portion of material aggregates that has the function of recording vibrations in the air, conventionally known as sound? That's not not very useful to talk in that way. So using personal pronouns and referring to persons doesn't imply that we're believe in their ultimate ontological reality. It's not at all wrong to do so. In Pali, the word for self is atta, and we find it in the phrase anatta, not self. But it's also used as a simple pronoun, reflexive pronoun, in very similar way to we use self in compounds in English. Myself, yourself, herself. The use of these pronouns do not indicate a metaphysical statement. They're a reference to a conventional referent point. So this is another approach to a topic I broached, I think, a couple of weeks ago, holding the tension of living in the conventional world and dealing in the conventional reality, but holding right view on the ultimate reality. In an ultimate sense, this life, this entire world, this entire universe, every realm of being, every state of existence is ultimately useless and futile and pointless and goes nowhere. That's the meaning of life. There is no meaning. It's futile. It's useless. And this is an ultimate reality. The samsara is essentially empty and useless and futile. But we can't act upon that analysis in a practical way, in a conventional way, in our ordinary dealings. Well, we can say, if we're we can say, I don't want to bother cutting the firewood. What's the point? It's all futile in the end anyway. The sun will burn out in a few billion years. What does it matter if I freeze to death this winter before that? That's obviously silly, right? We have to function in this conventional world, and this world is not false. It's conventionally true. It has its place and its value within its own limits. And looked at it within its own limits and not from the limit of the ultimate, then this life does have a meaning. It does have a sense, and we are attempting to live in as skillful a way as we can, both for the benefit of self and other. So that means acting with skill and wisdom and compassion, with the guiding principle of minimizing suffering of self and others. And this can be done, has to be done, but it can be done without losing sight of the ultimate, which is the difference between the conditioned and the unconditioned. When we practice our meditation, when we try to develop spiritually, it should be with the goal in mind, the guiding principle of realizing the unconditioned, getting that precious glimpse, at least, of nibbana, of the unconditioned, and that puts everything into perspective. The Four Noble Truths are considered as and defined as such as being ultimate truths, transcendent truths. And the first truth is the truth of suffering, is the expression of the reality of this samsaric plane. This is in total, the samsaric existence is dukkha. So it's limited. The first noble truth is limited to the conditioned. As is understood, at least in the Theravada school, is understood as there is a reality to this conditioned world. It does have, its own level of reality. It's not entirely an illusion. There is suffering. There is dukkha. And it's driven by the mental factor of desire. And in the formula of the dependent origination, you could say the motive force of samsara is ignorance. So these two, looked at it in different ways, from a different angle, either one of these could be said to be the engine or the driving force of samsara, ignorance and craving, which are both of them mental factors. So this reality, this conditioned reality, is something that we essentially do. There's a creative aspect, there's an aspect in which we are the creators of our own reality, that our desire and ignorance formulates or conditions our existence. This is expressed in the cosmological myth of the origin of the world in Buddhism. First of all, there is no ultimate origin. There is no first moment. However far back in time you go, there was always a yesterday. So there's no actual point of origination. It's endlessly cycles. But any given world system, which is a subset of the totality, any given world system does have a point of origin and a point of annihilation, of destruction. It has a lifespan. It's impermanent like everything else. And what happens when a world system is destroyed at the end of its time is the beings that populated that world system cannot be reborn in that plane of existence. They're reborn in a higher plane, in the Abhasara realm. And it's their karma which generates the next world coming into existence, the new world for the next cycle. There's no God creator. It's natural process generated by the karma of the beings. And karma is ultimately it's a purely mental process. So the cumulative mental process of all these beings generates worlds that beings live in. This is how it's mythologically understood, how the world comes into being, created by the mental processes of the beings from the previous world. Their karma needs a stage to unfold in, so a world is generated. And be that as it may, this is something dealing with a mythology that covers very vast spans of time. But in each moment of our existence, we are experiencing, through the sense doors, we're experiencing the results of past karma. And this is at the level, remember, of conventional truth, conventional reality. It's part of the formula. There is fruit of good and evil deeds. I think it's not without some interest and importance that there is a way of interpreting this in terms of the modern understanding of physics. In quantum mechanics, the reality exists in its pristine state. It exists as a potential, a probability field. The electron is neither here nor there until it's observed. It exists only as a potentiality, a mathematical abstraction with percentages of possibilities of being here or there. Then the observer effect, they call this collapse of the wave function. Once the experimenter takes a measurement, then we can say the electron is at point A, because he has observed it. Until that point, it was neither here nor there. And this is a mathematical expression and an abstraction, and there's different ways of interpreting it, and of trying to explain it. But I think what's called the Copenhagen explanation is pretty close to a Buddhist view of the conscious mind creating its own reality. That the universe exists as a field of potential until mind is applied, and it forces the universe to take a stand and be this or that. And we could say that this is the acting out of our karma. That our karma is acting as the observer and collapsing the wave function from the field of potentials. It's collapsing it into that which is appropriate to that karma. This is, however you want to interpret that, as speculative application of ideas from different systems, how they might mesh. But what is important is the emphasis in the formula of conventional truth on the ethical quality of our deeds, that they do have significance. We mustn't use a misinterpretation of ultimate reality to fall back on a kind of a nihilist or amoralist position, to say nothing has any ultimate meaning, so it doesn't matter what I do. No, this is a very dangerous false view. And when the Buddha is talking about various views, he was most critical of views that denied that there are results of good and evil deeds, because of the danger that poses to not only to the individual but to society as a whole. If you imagine there are no results from your deeds, if this idea becomes widespread, you just get, anarchy of people without any moral compass. The Buddha, when talking about this type of view, he said anyone who promotes that type of view is making very bad karma for themselves. And in one place, listing these kind of various views, he expresses this kind of amoral nihilist position as probably an exaggerated parody, speaking about the teaching of one of these philosophers, saying that if two men are walking on the banks of the Ganges, one on the left bank and one on the right bank, and the one on the right bank is, as he goes along, he's making gifts and doing generous deeds. On the other bank of the Ganges, he's murdering and killing and laying up piles of hacked up corpses. There's no difference morally between the two. There's no difference in result between the two. And another example like that, he has someone claiming human beings are nothing but a conglomerate of atoms. And if I run my sword through a person and cut them in half, there's no moral effect whatsoever. I'm merely passing my sword through atoms. This is the kind of dangerous, amoral, anarchic kind of nihilistic kind of thinking that can result in horrendous playing out in the real world by erroneously clinging to some kind of theory of ultimate reality only, denying any importance to conventional level of reality. It's also said, don't denigrate the benefits of good karma. Ultimately, we should be trying to get liberated from this samsaric existence, but we might end up being sojourning here for some time yet. So it's quite incumbent and wise for us to try and establish things in as wholesome and productive and beneficial way as we can in this conditioned existence. And even for the realization of the unconditioned, it requires a great deal of effort on the conditioned plane for this to become a possibility and manifest in the world. You think back even from the time of the Buddha to the present, all the effort that's been put in by the followers of the Buddha in propagating and preserving the Dhamma, in terms of building and maintaining monasteries, in terms of printing and distributing books, making all kinds of effort on the purely conventional physical level of reality to keep it happening, to make a vessel for the unconditioned to be realized, to carve out a niche within samsaric existence where there is some possibility of realization. A big part of that is the Sangha as an institution. The institution of the ordained bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. There's a very good possibility that the Bhikkhu Sangha is the oldest continual institution on earth, with a continual institutional existence, direct linkage, generation to generation. And that's something worked out on the conventional level. The Sangha and the Dhamma in its form, the manifest form of the Dhamma in terms of the spoken word of the Buddha and the suttas and so on, printed in books. This is a conventional level of reality, but it has the core, the heart of connection to the unconditioned. One of the terms of that conventional right view is that there are in this world those samanas and brahmanas who by their own efforts have realized liberation. So generation by generation there have been those beings who have realized the fruits of the path. There have been the stream winners and whence returners and non-returners and arahants. These are the Aryans. When we do the chanting in the Tipiso chanting that we do is paying homage to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And the Sangha defined in that terms that we're paying homage to is the Sangha of the Aryans, those beings who have realized the unconditioned, who are a living expression of the Dhamma. So I guess to summarize the theme of this talk, I would say that it's always very important that we don't lose sight of the unconditioned. Remember, that's the goal of the practice. That should be the orientation. Otherwise, it really is pointless. But on the other hand, not to neglect or denigrate the reality of the conditioned existence that we have to deal with, that has its own reality, it has its own level of reality. And to use the conventional forms and concepts, use them skillfully and wisely, but not to be fooled thereby.